Hi guys, it's Elisa with Fusion DIY. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you a project that I've worked on over the last couple of weeks. It's actually taken me a little bit of time to get this project completed. I think that I've mentioned to you I do work a full-time job, so I had to fit this in between working full-time and volunteering in my town and so on and so forth. But I think that you'll really enjoy this piece, and this just goes to show you that you could find a piece that looks like a disaster, but with a little bit of time and patience you can turn it into a beautiful piece of home decor. So let's get started. Here's the table that I picked up on Facebook Marketplace. It was free to good home, and you can see the back of the table where the sun has actually faded the wood, and I knew that I wasn't going to be restaining it. I wanted to paint it, so I wasn't too concerned about it. It did have a broken leg, and somebody drove 2 screws in the leg, and so I had to take the screws out and I had to putty all of that up and sand it all down. Once it was sanded, I actually gave it 2 coats of the Dixie Belle Boss. Boss is a great product. It prevents bleed through, it blocks odors and stains, and pretty much seals the tannins into the wood so that you don't have to worry about any of the tannins coming through when you paint your piece. I knew I was painting it white, and so I wanted to make sure there was no chance that there was going to be any bleed through on this piece. So I gave it 1 coat, I let it dry overnight, and then the very next day I gave it a 2nd coat. And I have it tipped on its side because my cats have a tendency to jump on anything that's flat. So I turned it on its side just while I was working on the legs, and once I started working on the top I turned it back upright. So now I'm giving it 1 coat of the Dixie Belle Boss here, and then I will go back a 2nd time and give it another coat. Now, I have to tell you guys, when I am working, when I'm painting, when I'm doing any kind of work, I am a hot mess. I don't do my hair, I don't do my makeup, I just roll out of bed sometimes and I just get to work because I have a vision in my head and I want to make sure that I get that vision to completion. So, like I said, I just kept going the whole day. So this is the 2nd coat that I gave it. And once that was dry, I grabbed my Klingon S50 brush, which I absolutely love, and my Country Chic paint in the color Simplicity, which I believe is the whitest white. Now I happen to really like Country Chic. I'm a Dixie Belle girl too, but this Country Chic paint is beautiful. It is not quite as thick as the Dixie Belle, so it's a little bit easier to work with, and you don't have to water anything down. But I will tell you that this paint goes on beautifully and it gives it such a great luster. So this is the end of the 1st coat on the top. And now I'm going to go around the apron of the table and I'm going to give that a coat of paint as well. I know there's a lot of debate whether you should paint underneath the table, but I just wanted to get underneath the edges to make sure that if somebody looked under there quickly that they wouldn't see that it was an unpainted surface. And now I'm going down and taking care of the legs. So this is what it looks like once I got the first coat on, and I know that it looks horrible before it looks beautiful, but trust me, it will get beautiful. One of the things that I needed to do was I needed to recreate that decorative piece that fell off when the leg was broken. So I'm taking my Iron Orchid Designs clay and I'm going to recreate that decorative piece, and you'll see as I move a little further along in this video, you'll see where I recreated it. And it's really hard to tell. You really have to look pretty closely to see that it's been recreated. The problem with this piece, it was not just a simple cut it out on a scroll saw, because it's got a curve to it. And like I said, you'll be able to see that in just a little bit. So it really was kind of a challenge. I needed to get the right thickness. I needed to get the right curve. So it presented some challenges, and this is a big part of the reason why it took me several weeks before this piece was done. So I was very conscious of making sure that I got the right thickness so that it was not so apparent that it was a repair. Once I got it squished down to the right thickness, then I started shaping it. And you can see in that piece of paper in the foreground is the shape of the piece that I'm trying to recreate. I put that paper against one of the other pieces and sketched it out. Now what I'm doing here is, as I am recreating the piece, I'm also using some water to smooth out the side, or the front, I guess, if you will, of the piece. I know that I could have used wood putty, I know that I could have used a couple of other things, but the IOD clay is what I had on hand, and I know in years past when I have used this, it dries like a piece of concrete and it is nearly indestructible, which is why I wanted to use the IOD clay. So you can see now I'm trying to just cut it out to the right shape, and then I'm going to put the right angle on it. Oh, and here's Bella. Bella decided that she was going to join me. So she's going to sit and she's going to watch for a little while. And then she's going to pick herself up and walk away when she's sufficiently bored. So what I'm doing is I'm dipping my fingers into a bowl of water and rubbing it across the clay to smooth things out. And it's actually starting to take shape. This is not for the faint of heart. Like I said, this took me a while before I got the curves right and the angle right and the bend in the piece right. It was definitely trial and error. A lot of trials and a lot of errors. But I think once you see what it looks like, you'll be amazed the way that it turned out. So once I got that done, I glued it to the piece and I used the paper tape to hold it in. There's the original piece and this is the repair. It doesn't look like much now, but when you see it at the end, you'll be amazed. So once the coat of paint dried, I came back and I gave it a second coat of paint. After the paint dried, I gave it a coat, a very thin coat of Mod Podge. And here you can see I am putting on the Mod Podge very thin, working with the light so that I can see what I've done and what I haven't done. The shiny part, of course, is the wet Mod Podge, and the sunlight really helped me to be able to determine where I had placed the Mod Podge and where I hadn't. So I'm going to try for the first time using the heat method. So with the heat method, what you do is you lay down the Mod Podge and let that dry, and then you're going to lay down your paper, take a hot iron and a piece of parchment paper, and you're basically going to iron the paper onto the table. I had never done it before. I was absolutely amazed at how well it worked. So I'm laying down the piece of decoupage paper. This is the Jamie Ray Vintage decoupage paper, and I absolutely love this paper. It is so beautiful. But what I'm doing is I'm just lining it up on the top of the table, making sure that it doesn't fall over the edge. So once I got it taped into place, and I used a very tiny piece of painter's tape, I took a hot iron and I ironed over the decoupage paper, and what it does is it reactivates the Mod Podge and it causes the paper to adhere to the table. My friends, I will tell you, I will never wet Mod Podge again. because I was absolutely amazed, pleasantly so, at how beautiful this turned out. And it was not hard at all. The one thing that I did need to do was just pay attention to the edges, and I had to cut some of the paper off in order for it to fit, because one sheet did not fit on the top. So I had to add another piece. But what I did was I took a wet brush and I drew a line, and then I gently tore away so that there would not be a straight line delineating one piece of paper from the next. But I'm looking at this and I'm absolutely amazed at how great it looks. There's no wrinkles. Everything is down flat. And I'm just going to go over the extra seam again, just to make sure that everything is laying flat. No steam in that iron, just a hot iron and a piece of parchment paper. And I think my iron was too hot, or I was too long on the paper, because you could see where some of the ink actually came up. So it was the first time that I tried it, so next time around I will be a little bit faster in doing this, and hopefully the paint won't come off the paper. But you couldn't really see it on the decoupage paper. You couldn't see that there was some of it that came off. So this is what it looks like after I finished decoupaging it. And look at this, you cannot see a wrinkle. There's no bubbles, there's no wrinkles. I was amazed. It really came out beautiful. And here's a picture farther away. And this is more of a side view. Now, you can see the piece on the left was the piece that I recreated. The piece on the right is original to the piece. And here it is staged in my home. I absolutely love how this came out. So what did you think of that project? It's amazing how taking something that is either on the curb or offered free on Marketplace, with a little bit of time and patience and great products, you can turn something that was destined for a landfill into a beautiful piece of home decor. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and the notification bell, and you'll be notified every time I release another video. So I'm going to ask you to stick around. In the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be shooting another video, and it's going to involve this beautiful piece of fabric. So I hope that you will join me again. Again, thanks for joining me today, and I hope that you have an awesome week. God bless you and your family.